Hello and welcome to Side Character Quest. This is a podcast where we are doing an actual play session 0. I have not planned out much of what I'm going to say, but I have planned out a guest for this episode. Hello, Fiona.
Hello. How are you doing? I'm in this really nice new sort of Zoom-like room. I'm like, ooh, how lovely. Look at so nice.
Real quick, if you could just tell listeners of the show who you are, although I think that anybody who's listened to the feed drops that I've had on SEQ will probably recognize your voice.
Oh, you hope so. Otherwise, they're like, why aren't you listening to Side Character Quest, honestly? My name is Fiona. I use she, her pronouns. For a visual description, I am a white woman with sort of mid-browny, blondie hair. Currently, I'm wearing a lot of cozy, like, fleecy stuff because it's a little bit cold when we're recording. And what you can't see is that there's loads of blankets around me. You can often find me hosting What Am I Rolling, which is a twice-monthly tabletop RPG one-shot podcast, and also doing the DM's Book Club, which is like a weekly book club podcast. So basically, anything TTRPG, I'm your lady for it. And now I'm here, so I'm very excited to be here.
Excellent. All right, so like I said earlier, what we are going to do is a session 0 for Fiona's upcoming Side Character Quest.
Yeah.
I am not 100% sure whether we are going to air this or not.
Nope.
This might just end up being a thing just for the two of us to sort of check tech so that I can hear back the quality of Fiona's mic, so I can test out the new recording software that I'm using, blah, 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 all these things. But then also to like do normal session 0 stuff. In the spirit of a normal session 0 stuff, I'm trying to I was thinking I wanted to model this for people who are worried that like session 0s can be really can suck the fun out of stuff.
Absolutely.
And be too much effort, that I have purposefully not planned this out too much.
Good. Yeah.
I want this to be a little freewheeling. We're giving ourselves like an hour, roughly. And if we realize that there's stuff we didn't cover, which is probably going to happen.
Might happen, yeah.
We can always, message each other before we actually play.
Yeah.
And that's, listener at home, that's all it got to be.
Yeah.
It can be chill. You don't have to make anything big about it.
It's so funny because only recently has I'd say in the last couple of years, obviously safety tools and session 0s have come into the zeitgeist of it, and even the latest D&D 2014, that other big RPG that we don't talk about in other shows, they've started talking about safety tools and session 0s and stuff and how important they are. And it's so interesting because obviously people go, oh, we don't have time for it. But if you make time for it, like we are doing right now,
it's part of the play.
It's part of the play. We know, we set the expectations for both of us. We know what's on the table, what's off the table. Honestly, I would never run any session now without having a session 0, just because it's just so important for me as a GM. And so I very much appreciate when other people go, oh, let's do a session 0 and take the time to plan around it. And as you said, they don't have to be longer than an hour or even half an hour, just as long as you get the basics and just make sure everyone's on the same page. And it doesn't have to, I'm sure we'll talk about safety topics and stuff, but it just has to be stuff like accommodations, like, oh, I might need to go get a parcel, or I have children I have to put to bed.
Yes.
It just sets that, hey, just so you know, these things may happen. And it just helps people, especially sometimes that happens to me, is that when I'm streaming or anything, I have to go to people, if your internet cuts out, don't panic. We've got things in the background for that. Because sometimes people get really worried about oh, but what about this? And what if I can't do this? And it just gets all that stuff out the way. And yeah, I'm a big proponent of safety tools and session 0s.
Totally. And I recently heard, I won't go as far down this tangent as I could, but I was recently listening to a podcast called Dice Exploder, which examines. Are you familiar with Dice Exploder?
I've yet to listen to it, but I think you've recommended it because there's the Blades in the Dark interview that's come out recently, so it's on the big old list of research that I'm going to listen to. Yeah.
But yeah, they go deep on a single game mechanic per episode. Usually, they did do recently an interview with John Harper about Blades in the Dark, but I was listening to one of the episodes, and Sam, the host, mentioned an essay talking about safety tools from the perspective of hospitality, where it's reframing it not as a thing to protect people, but as a thing to be nice to your guests.
Oh, I love that view of it.
And kind to the people that you are hosting, or that are hosting you, right? And I like that framing.
I really like that framing as well. Yeah, especially when again, we can have our own episode about safety tools, I know, but I feel like sometimes the words, safety tools, X cards, lines and veils, all that stuff, there's like almost like a backlash, an emotional trauma like sort of thing to it for lots of reasons.
Lots of reasons, yeah.
And I understand to a point, like, why do we need this? Because it's going to spoil the story, or it's going to really railroad what kind of story we want, etc. And all these different views of it, and it's so not true. It's so wild when people go, but it's going to spoil everything. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Is to use safety tools.
I was recently playing a very impromptu, no prep horror one shot, and at one point I realized we hadn't talked about any of this, and I just very quickly said, hey, if I go over a line at any point, just raise up your arms, do an X to the webcam, and we'll pivot. And they were like, okay, cool. And that ended up like we talked about it afterwards, and they said that like we both felt that it gave us so much more freedom to go for it with horror.
Exactly. So horror is the big thing for that, I think, for sure. Yeah.
But anyway, let's get on to the actual Session Zero stuff. So we are going to be using a game that I have made, modified, hacked from Blades in the Dark, from Forged in the Dark, which is Forged in the Dark is the sort of like generic system,
game engine, isn't it?
Game engine, thank you. That grew out of Blades in the Dark, which Blades in the Dark is very tied to a specific setting. And I have taken that and I've made what I'm currently calling working title SEQ in the Dark, which is an in the dark game designed specifically for this setting and this show. So it is designed for, GM, one player. It's designed to hopefully, I'm hoping, make characters that feel like they already fit in this world, to encourage the players to make characters that already fit in this world, and to take advantage of a lot of the mechanics and stuff that I really enjoy from Blades in the Dark and Forged in the Dark games. Also, real quick, I will highlight In the Dark, which is a simplified version of Blades in the Dark that I used as sort of a starting point in my brain to understand the pure level of these mechanics. So anyway, that's also a good thing. I'll link to those in the show notes.
Yeah.
Or maybe I won't if I don't publish these.
Who knows? Secrets.
But you, I know, have at least started a Blades in the Dark game. You've played some Blades in the Dark, right?
Yeah. So it was one of my. I have a very varied history of all different RPG stuff. So I've played Blades in the Dark twice. Once a long time ago, and then once very recently. We did a very, very short 3 or 4 sessions. But it was Blades in the Dark as sort of the very vanilla of like Dustfall, where all this sort of thing. And I was playing with mostly people who I'd only just played D&D, but it was everyone really enjoyed it. They loved the flashback mechanic, all that sort of thing.
Flashback mechanic's so fun.
Exactly. So I'd say recently, but I'm not au fait with it. I don't know it inside and out or anything like that. And I've not played any other Forged in the Dark games that I'm aware of.
Gotcha. In that case, I am not going to go super deep into mechanics up top. I'm going to assume a certain level of understanding. If at any point you have any questions, let me know. I have changed some things.
Sure.
So there will be some new stuff. But also, we can also explain mechanics as they come up while playing.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Also, another really important thing when you're talking about a session zero, a really important thing is understanding the setting that you're going to be in. I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but this is important for the game.
I see it coming.
How much of SEQ have you listened to, if any? It's totally cool if the answer is none.
I have only listened to like a couple of episodes, but it was a very long time. I think it's when we first met, so a very long time ago, and I've unfortunately not listened to anything yet. I have, again, my big to-do list. I have all the episodes from that recent 9 episode one you've done. It's ready to go for my big long walks, but unfortunately nothing recently.
Gotcha. That is totally fine. Totally cool. That arc actually is one of my favorite ones that I've done. And the guy that came on for that, I specifically told him not to listen to anything.
There you go.
So, you can come in totally blind. That being said, I'm going to read to you the intro that I wrote for SEQ in the Dark. All right. Plains, mountains, swamps, pines, cicadas sing, rivers flow, magic thrums through the air, and all of it surrounded by a single, massive wall, as ancient as history itself. Which is to say, not that ancient. Thanks to the loss, prehistoric, ain't all that long ago. Ah, well, rumor has it that bones are walking these days. Don't know if that's true or not, but either way, I don't take kindly to some church deciding it's their job to make that our problem. No matter what death is up to, life is good. At least for most folks. For the rest of us, well, we gotta make ends meet somehow. Doesn't much matter who our neighbors are. There's always gonna be scoundrels in the dark. Mm-hmm. So, basically what I'm trying to evoke here with this, and by the way, this is like, for anybody listening, this is written on the PDF right after the title page of the thing.
Gorgeous, like pink font as well. So I'm like, delicious.
Thank you. Gotta keep that branding alive.
Yeah, you gotta get your branding.
Basically, and I'll scroll down to the little creek scene.
Oh my goodness, gorgeous.
This is an illustration by my sister Autumn, who has done basically all of the SEQ art. Mm-hmm. But what I'm trying to evoke here is that the world of SEQ is a world where things are fairly peaceful. That's number one thing. Mm-hmm. Notice that that there was like, thanks to the loss, prehistoric and all that long ago, basically saying that there is stuff in history that is forgotten, but that is touching the current world, that affects current life. Then there's the mention of bones are walking these days. So basically there's some necromantic, like current events going on. The church deciding it's their job to make that our problem. Basically, there's going to be some church organizations, religious organizations that are basically being more aggressive in policing other people's lives than they used to.
Sure, they've got like an agenda that they're enforcing on people.
And this game is assuming that you are a person who is a bit of a scoundrel, who is, maybe this is a world that is very peaceful, that is very, most of the people are good. You're a bit of an exception to that.
Right.
You can push back against that if you want, but that's what I was assuming when designing this.
Okay, cool.
Do you have any immediate questions about that? You don't need to know a lot going in. So yeah.
I guess my question, you did use a southern accent. So is that the part of where we are is in a southern kind of hemisphere, or like just out of interest? It could also be a character choice that I don't need to know about, just out of interest, really. No,
that's a great question. So my goal with SEQ was to try to make this originally started as a D&D podcast specifically, and I was trying to make fantasy infused with where I grew up. So I was pulling in aspects of the region that I was from. So, and one of those aspects was accents. That said, Southern accents are pretty much if I can't think of an accent for an NPC, that's the one that I pull.
Cool.
Right?
Yeah.
I've decided that will be my default. However, I have used bad British accents. I have used bad French accents. I have used bad Russian accents. I have used blah, 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 blah. So the main thing for me is for people to sound distinct, which is not an issue for the guest player. I've had guests who have just used their normal speaking voice, and it's totally fine because they're distinct from all of my NPCs because... whatever. And for the NPCs, my goal is not realism. It's not Southern. It's just distinct.
Yeah, that's cool. Cool. Yeah, I am not someone that does accents at all. I've got a weird voice as it is, so I'm happy to stick to that one. So yeah, not that you would expect me to suddenly pull out like a Scottish accent, but just in general, I was just like, I'll just better check on that. Because again, I don't want to be like, who is this stranger in our lands? Like, we're not going to go through that. So no, it didn't sound like it. I just wanted to check.
And I'll also say that I typically aim for myself to, when I can, draw from my own lived experiences when deciding, like, okay. For example, there was a quest that was set in a swamp, and for that swamp, I used a state park that I went to all the time growing up. And I try to pull those like specific lived experiences into the game, into the setting, into the characters. And I encourage you to do the same, even if that means it totally doesn't make sense with like Southern American. I know Southern in the UK is different.
I know. I'm thinking a very posh London person now. But yeah. So yeah, Southern.
It was so funny when I realized that like Southern in the UK is posh and like
yeah, different things. Yeah,
very different things. But anyway, very good question. Moving on from that, I'm going to really quickly skim through this document that I've got pulled up. It's the game rules that I've made. I've play tested a couple of times. I keep making changes and updates, but here's where we are at right now. I've got this outline on the side that I can flip through, but I'll just scroll through. How to use the document, reading as a guest player, glossary and pronunciation.
Oh, my favorite thing. Thank you for including such a thing.
Specifically added because I've listened to so many episodes of your show where you and Hamilton complain about no pronunciation.
We're just butchering every word, and you're like, hang on, we'll sort this for every future game.
Yes. And if at any point you're like reading something, you're like, hey Ty, you didn't have this isn't in the glossary. Let me know and I'll add it.
Will do. Thank you.
I've got a section for like game terms, and I also have a section for the world.
Mate, so, you better be putting this out somewhere at some point, because I want people to look at me and go, oh yes, this is how it should do.
Then I've got a thing that I pulled over from a lot of like PBTA games where I just sort of go over like setting and tone and themes. We don't need to read through all of this, but you're free to peruse it on your own time. I link to the lore library on Side Character Quest's website, which dives deep on various stuff.
Gorgeous. Here's
just an example. We've got document going into various things. A lot of this is written in the sort of like D&D faux anthropologist voice. And I really want to get more practice speaking in a voice that makes more sense for this game in this setting, writing in that voice. But anyway, that's
good. That's good. Yeah.
Getting back to the game, again, there's like agenda and principles, which is like just powered by the apocalypse type stuff. And here is the stuff that you actually need.
Hey.
Player character creation. We've got a picture of some actual player characters from the game, just to give you an idea of sort of the variety that you can encounter. And then it's just first an outline of the different steps. And how about we just hop into this? Or do you have any questions before we hop in?
No, I'm good to go. I'm excited.
All right. So first, I know I haven't given you the character sheet ahead of time. You don't have anything printed out. You don't need to. We're going over this so that you can like make a more final decision later. You don't necessarily have to decide these things now.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, sounds good.
But and I also think I'm going to make some adjustments. But this is the basic way that the character sheet looks like. We've got it looks like a pretty standard Blades in the Dark or Forged in the Dark character sheet. We've got a section for character names, for stress, for harm, for special abilities, allies and rivals, gumption, which I'll explain that later. And then we've got insight, prowess, resolve, all these stats, gear, all that stuff. But all the people listening cannot see that, so too bad. So the way that we start is by answering 3 questions from the Tall Tales section of the book. So let's see. I'm going to stop talking when I need to scroll through stuff and like figure out the next step.
Do what you need to do. No, I'm the same. I have to be like, hang on, I've got to focus rather than talk at the same time. Go for it.
So specifically what this says is answer the 3 questions in the Tall Tales section and then decide how your experiences have capital M marked you. These should help you figure out who your character is and how they fit into this world. So I'm going to skip ahead. Answer 2 of the backstory questions below, and then answer the rumor question. Consider your answers and choose 1 or 2 marks. So let me explain what this is. Below, we've got a list of 18 backstory questions. You can choose 2 from any of these categories.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I've broken them up into questions about people that you know, about adventures you've been on, or about the last one is haunting. The last category is haunting, which is like anything to do with sort of traumatic experiences in your life or literal hauntings, like magical stuff. So we could go through this right now, but would you like to try to actually like start making a character now, or do you want me to just sort of go over the process?
Why don't we go through the whole thing?
Okay.
And I just say, like, because I'm very, I'll be honest, as an improviser, I have nothing until you give me one thing, and then I build off that. And usually it's quite short and succinct. I have not brought my little novella for you to read. No creative writing here, so I'm just gonna, I will just go through it, sort of without seeing it. So yeah, I'd love to give it a go if that's okay.
Yeah. So give it a go as in we start actually answering these questions now? Okay, cool. So you can... Let me send you an actual link to this. Have I not sent you a link?
You might have, but why don't you do it again, just in case?
Because I imagine that'll make it easier for you to like scroll through.
I'm sure you have, absolutely, because you are very prepared and all that sort of thing, and I'm just me. So
don't worry, we got this. I've just dropped it into Discord.
Got it. Let me move that across and then tap back onto the screen. All right.
So, again, just explaining this to anybody listening to this, I have 3 categories, and each of those have 6 questions. And I've set this up so that if somebody wanted to randomize this, if they had a D6, they could roll to choose which of the 3 categories they're going to get a question from, and then they could roll again to choose one of the 6 questions. So randomization is possible if that's something you're interested in. Otherwise,
I'll definitely do it for the first one, if that's all right. I can see one that I'm like, oh, I want to have that one. So I'll do it for the first one, and then I will pick the second backstory question.
Cool.
So I've got my D6, and I'm just going to roll on the table. I'm never more than 6 feet away from a D6. I just go, so. Oh, you know what? I actually did roll the question I wanted. That's quite good.
Amazing.
So my first die was a 6, so haunting, and so 5 and 6 is haunting. And then I got a 5. So you have a family member who hates you. What did you do to them, and have you tried to redeem yourself in their eyes?
That's really fun. Normally, I would say, like, we'd be writing these things down. I feel like since, we're just doing this in a recording and whatever, we can just sort of talk through what you think your answers would be, and we can finalize it more later.
Exactly, yeah.
You can change things, if you decide. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I have an idea because you sent me some sort of pre questions to sort of think about. So I have an idea. So how do you want me to go about it? Do you want me to tell you what my idea is, or just go off these questions? Like, what are you thinking?
I say, give me a quick rundown of what you're thinking.
Sure. Yeah.
Elevator pitch me.
Elevator pitch you. Okay. So, and I appreciate none of my ideas are original. You probably have had 3 or 4 of the same character that I'm about to pitch to you.
Oh, I love it.
But one of the things you asked me was like, what's a character that you like but you don't get to play that often? And I it's a bit of a line in the sense I have played this character, but sort of as a one-shot sort of thing, and it wasn't a D&D campaign. But I was playing like the slimy advisor to someone, and and basically in my head, very much like the spider from Game of Thrones. So I'm thinking like a big, bulky individual, bald-haired, long robes, always templed fingers, very sort of Palpatine-esque type thing, perhaps. But they were completely inept because they couldn't necessarily fight or anything like that. But they were a sorcerer of some sort, and that was fun to play. Clearly a very stereotypical quote-unquote evil character, but everyone else around them was like, oh, but that's just I think that character was called Simeon, and so it was, oh, that's just a Simeon. A Simeon's always given me good advice, haven't you, Simeon? And I'm like, yes, my lord, that sort of thing. I just thought that idea of the character I just really, really enjoyed. So yeah, a slimy sort of advisor was what I had, who I think actually in that story did have some necromantic feelings. I'm not too fussed about that for this particular story, but I just like the idea of a slimy advisor who's trying to basically doing a worm tongue, sort of whispering things in people's ears and then just getting all the secrets to them. So that's the pitch I'm thinking of.
That's great. So with the idea of you have a family member who hates you, what did you do to them? Have you tried to redeem yourself in their eyes? What pops to mind for that sort of character?
Oh, so a little tweak I would love to do on this, which again doesn't need to come up in the story at all. I think I am the sort of second youngest of 7 brothers and sisters, very much taking it from the what's it called now? Not Starlight. I can't remember what it's called now. The
Seventh Son?
No, Stardust. No. Stardust is what
Stardust. Okay, gotcha. I watched that this weekend, actually.
Did you?
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite like underrated gems. I think
it was fun. It was really good.
Everyone's got fun stuff, but they have like 7 brothers and then a sister at the end. I think I would place myself as sort of the second youngest, and basically all my brothers before me have they hate me because I feel like I am maybe I've shown them up in some way.
Gotcha.
I don't think I've done anything specific like I've hurt their horse or something like that. It's more that I've excelled by being extra slimy and extra manipulative, and I haven't done anything to redeem myself. I've just been better than them.
That's great.
Mind. So like again, this is sibling rivalry is what I'm thinking. Rivalry from all the other sort of brothers and sisters, or any sort of basically I've just got a lot of siblings who just hate me because I'm better than them.
That's really great. And you have not tried to do anything to make this relationship better.
Why would I do that?
So what are we thinking for question number 2?
Question number 2. All right, I will roll this. No, I rolled it last time. Didn't I? I'll roll it again because I picked. That was kind of like the one I wanted.
The one that you wanted.
I wanted what I wanted. Okay, so I will do the first one first. We've got a 2, so I think that's people. And then I'll roll the other d6. I got a 5. So you have been looking for someone to teach you about something. What is it that you want to learn, and why has it been so hard to find someone to teach you?
Oh man, this is so good. This is so juicy.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this.
Okay. So I think you've talked about, again, there's a little bit of necromancy in this world. I think my character doesn't have anything to do with necromancy per se, but boy, would they love to.
Oh man, this is so good. Okay.
I think they are the best in their field of they're good at numbers, they're good at this, but what if they could really control life after death? And it's not necessarily their life, it's other people's lives. I think it's all very much it's what gains it to me is oh no, I don't want to live forever, but how about I make other people live forever and then they work for me.
That's so good. I can see. This is why I've been trying to think of part of me has been anxious not knowing what the next quest of this show is going to be, because I had known the last one was coming for ages and ages and ages. But this one, I haven't had any clue. But I was like, no, just wait until you hear the character. Then options will appear. And I see so many juicy options.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Next question. And feel free to say that you want to hold off on this if you don't feel like you're at a spot there. Those 2 questions were about yourself. Yes. This next question is about the world. Ooh. What is a rumor that you have heard? This could be something you heard years ago as a child, or something that you just heard yesterday. It could be about your hometown, world history, your neighbors, a shadowy creature in the pines. Maybe the rumor is a core part of your identity, or maybe you scoffed when you heard it and haven't given it a second thought. Maybe it's true, maybe it's false, but more likely it's somewhere in between.
Ooh, see, I do want to answer this. I think, what can I say? I think there's been a rumor going around in the last couple of months, and a rumor coming around in the last couple of months or weeks from just people, and I keep hearing these little little birds talking to me about stuff, that there is a something to the north. There is a great shadow that is coming, and people are like, oh, it's it is the bones that are walking again. I'm like, no, don't be ridiculous. There's no such thing. It's I think what I attribute it to, after getting down, the most consistent rumor, this great shadow, is actually a lot of animals leaving, migrating somewhere. Elks, big wolves, anything from the north, so anything that's sort of furry, that's meant for colder climes, they are moving, they're shifting to completely different habitats. I don't know why.
No idea. Like, are you sure you haven't listened to the show?
No.
I have. There's so much that I can play with this. Oh, I'm so excited.
Oh, I'm pleased.
Okay.
But what I would say, just to say, have I scoffed at it? I feel like I'm unnerved by it, because at first it's like, I saw a ghost, and it's like, it's a sheet outside, that sort of thing. I have to deal with that sort of the usual hubbub around. But I think it's the talk about animals migrating, big like predators, essentially, big things. If they're moving, there's something else that's moving them. But so I think it's at the back of my hand, but I've not gone, I must figure this out. I've gone, it's something that people are talking about that's coming this way. I think that's what it means. So I've not scoffed at it, but it's I have heard it, and I'm it worries me, but not part of my daily chores, I guess.
That's great. So next we are coming to another question. This is called marks. So you may be familiar, or you probably are familiar with traumas, which are a mechanic in Blades in the Dark and Forge in the Dark games, which basically are when enough bad stuff happens to your character, they take a trauma. If you take 4 traumas, then you retire from adventuring or from heisting or from a life of crime or whatever. Traumas are used by the player. They're instigated by the player to trigger experience points. I wanted to make a mechanic similar to that would work in a game where you're not really going to get to level up. So I have made a thing called marks, and the idea is you have been marked by the experiences of your life so far, and it is essentially a trauma that is like more open-ended and that you get when you make your character. You can have 1 or 2. So actually reading what is written on the page, consider what you know about your character so far. How do you think their life has affected them, especially in ways that could cause problems? Blah, 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 blah. Let me give an example. Perhaps being lost in the pines for weeks has left you afraid of leaving the city. Perhaps you witnessed a magical artifact destroy your home, and now you're obsessed with destroying anything that reminds you of it. Choose 1 or 2 marks. These should be a word or phrase that ties directly to your backstory. Record them on your character sheet. Marks are typically based on a character's beliefs, drives, or personality, but they could also reflect an arcane influence, such as like an actual, like a literal cursing or something. When marks cause problems for you, you gain gumption, which we'll talk about gumption when it is relevant. But it's a good thing that you want to do. So you can at any point say like, oh, I will do this thing that is bad for my character because it is one of my marks. And when you do that, you get a little resource that you can employ later in the game.
Nice. Okay. Cool. I wonder, so you've got some examples there.
I've got some examples. These are pulled directly from the Blades in the Dark examples, but you can go more wild than this. You can go more specific. But the examples they have are I actually did modify some of these now that I'm seeing it. Bound. You have forsaken part of your individuality by committing to the whims of a person, institution, or other thing beyond yourself. Cold. You're not moved by emotional appeals or social bonds. Cursed. You are haunted by some arcane force. Obsessed. You're enthralled by one thing, an activity, a person, or an ideology. And so on and so forth. You can see these.
Yeah, for sure. Now, here's me pitching to you, and maybe we can work on this together, because you've gone for the ones which I totally understand that are sort of obviously more broad. I like the idea that my character, obviously, again, just the way I've described them, I've clearly grown up in a certain setting that, maybe they're a bit more affluent, maybe they're a bit more privileged. I've seen this person as sort of working part of a court or part of in the community, maybe governance sort of thing. But I love the idea that they hate riding horses. They do not like.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. That is exactly the sort of thing that I am looking for with this.
Right. Yeah. So like equine phobia, I believe, is the actual term. But it's like, I think any pack animals. Again, I don't know exactly what you have it, but like anytime they have to go to a different place, they're like, and they're like, oh, we have a horse for you, and this person's like, okay, and it's like, again has to battle through, like, again, it's in my head, again, so random this cultural reference, but there's the Sherlock Holmes, Robert Downey Jr. films, and in one of the films, it's very clear that Sherlock Holmes does not like riding animals, so he gets on the smallest horse possible. It's that sort of vibe where I will pick. If I have to pick the slowest creature, then that is fine. If I have to ride on the back of a wagon, that is absolutely fine. I just can't stand horses because I think they will kick me off. It's just, again, they're probably fine, but it's that sort of thing where it's like, yeah. So that was the one I was thinking of, is like, not a fan of horses or pack animals. So that's what I'm thinking.
That is actually I know you pointed out that the examples I gave were fairly specific. I do need to change sort of the language in this section, because later I do give the examples that are more in line with what you were saying. Like, one of the examples is paranoid about getting lost in the woods, obsessed with destroying strange artifacts, cursed to have possessions stolen by squirrels. You know, those, like, I do want something like a little bit more specific, and you have landed on the perfect level of specificity. If you decide as we're going along you want to give yourself a second one, you are free to. I think that starting with just one is totally
fine. If you think it's fine, like, I'll pitch you the other one I thought of, and again, happy to have it in later or something like that. So if you think the equine phobia covers everything, is like a fear of water in terms of like swimming or drowning was the other thing I was thinking of. Again, because they're not, again, how I see it from what you've described of this world, maybe swimming against big long rivers or anything like that, we get boats. Boats are safe, except when people have been drowning, all that sort of thing, and maybe this person doesn't swim. That was the only thing I was thinking of either as an alternative, but basically just, I was thinking cold water, can't swim. I think that was the thing I was thinking of for that. But I'm happy just to go with one and then think of the other one later. It's two different ways. Basically, it's transport. I don't like transport.
Yeah. I was just thinking. Yeah, I really like both of those. I've just noted them down. I say, like, think about it.
Yes. Yeah.
I think doing those two would be perfect. It gives us a lot to work with.
Well, that's what I thought. Yeah.
I basically want to make sure that. If I want to know all of the things that you've chosen so that I can set up situations where you can take advantage of these things. And while this is a problem, right? It is a problem that you trigger to give yourself a benefit.
Exactly. Well, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, like, if one of those things will probably come up in that story. You know, if there's no, if I'm just carried by carriage everywhere, I thought, oh, great, but there'll definitely be like a river crossing at some point where I'll have to get into the water, or vice versa, that I have to go quickly and send a missive. Oh, I've got to get on the big strong horse.
This is giving me more ideas for story. I have, oh man, I have so many ideas.
Good. Oh, excited. Okay, great.
That's great. Okay. So those are the end of the big question things. So let's go back up to the character creation. And I will move on to the next section. So here, review the list of special abilities, using them to help develop your character concept. Choose 3 special abilities. So again, I have these broken down into categories. However, this is not a game with playbooks. You can choose 3 from any one of the 6 categories.
Okay.
Or you can stick to a single one. They're sort of giving you a sense of, like, hey, if you aren't sure, then look at special abilities in the category that seems the closest to what you're aiming for, right? So the 6 categories are cousin, dread, faithful, rascal, researcher, or scoundrel. And I probably should have read the descriptors of that. Cousin. These are special abilities about community and relationships. Dread, strange and unnerving special abilities. Faithful, religion and oaths. Rascal, tricksters and scalawags. Researcher, knowledge and experimentation. Scoundrel, cutthroats and infiltrators. So if you think that your character, like, crosses over a few of those, then you can do that. But also, these moves are, like, labeled in a big old long list.
Yeah, I love it.
So feel free to poke around, and if you have any questions about any of them, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, again, how I'm thinking about this particular character, I feel like the cousin stuff maybe a bit more. I can see the stuff like you expect me to buy that, so knowing when someone's lying, that sort of thing is what I was sort of thinking there. But yeah, I'll have a more of an in-depth think about that one, I think, because there's so many really cool.
Yeah.
No, and I love that. I'm like, I'm really excited to go through them, and they look like they cover lots of different things. So yeah, but yeah, I'm definitely thinking this person is a bit more talky, smiling whilst stabbing you in the back, socially speaking, that rather than anything particularly vicious or obvious. I think more indiscreet is what I'm thinking for this character.
Totally. And one thing I want to point out is some of these moves are related to magic, to arcana, that sort of stuff. And I know you mentioned that your character is tied to or is interested in magic, right?
I think but it's that sort of thing where, again, in my head, it's like, a rich person's interested in something. So just tell me the thing, and I'll do it. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So I don't think they're magical by any means.
Gotcha. And the reason I point that out is because I just want to make the point that, like, if you don't choose a special ability that's related to magic, your character can still do magical stuff.
Right. Okay.
It's just that if they choose a move that's related to magic, you can do it and you will know consistently this is how the magic will behave.
Right.
Whereas the other stuff, you're opening up to luck of the dice. You know?
For sure. Interesting. Okay, cool.
So you said you wanted to sort of revisit these later.
I'll have a look through them properly, because again, because it's just there's 36 choices, so I would love to go through them in detail myself. And then, what did you say, pick 3 of them and then check them with you?
Pick 3. Yes, there are 6 categories, each with 6 different special abilities. So again, I set it up that way so that people could do it randomly if they wanted to.
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
There's also the option to make custom abilities if you want to, if you have a very specific idea and you can't think of how it fits,
and you've not covered it in some way. For sure. No, I think I'll have a look through, and I like how you've got the theme tables at the bottom as well, so if need be I can always roll randomly, but I want to read them fully, because I'm already like, how can I make my slimy little advisor even more slimy and me even more advisory. So for sure.
Exactly. And let's go back up to the player character creation. Look at the next section. So the next section is assigning action dots, assigning your stats. So when you do this, you're going to be wanting to try not to be too specialized. So basically, try not to assign all of your action dots to just 2 actions, to 2 of the stats. Try not to be too general. Try not to assign 1 dot to all 6 actions. Recommended, this is how I recommend doing it. Think about 2 activities that your character is best at. Assign 2 dots to one of those actions and 1 dot to the other. For example, if your character is best at sailing a ship and plotting a course, you might put 2 dots in maneuver and 1 dot in tinker. Think about your character's lived experiences. Assign 1 dot relevant to 2 actions. To 2 relevant actions, sorry. For example, if a lot of their life has been spent fending off deadly rivals, you might put 1 dot in throw down, which is like the attack fighting thing. Think about the culture or community that your character was raised in. Assign 1 dot to a relevant action. If your character was raised on a small island community known across the Salton Sea for the strange and intriguing mechanical devices they create, you might put 1 dot in tinker. So that's the question of, like, okay, what are the different abilities? Yes,
for sure.
Here's a list. I'm gonna pull them up. They're on the character sheet. So
yeah, I've got them in front of me.
For listeners, I'm pulling up this list. Blades in the Dark typically has 12. I've reduced that to 9 for simplicity's sake. We've got Hunt, Study, and Tinker. And we've got Maneuver, Sneak, and Throwdown. We've got Attune, Command, and Sway. If you have questions about what any of those mean, let me know.
That's sure. I guess the quick thing, because this is from me remembering a little bit about the Blades in the Dark ideas. So I know Command is sort of like issuing like orders and stuff like that, and Sway is kind of more persuasive, I believe.
Yes. So
is that how you rule it? Just out of interest, yeah.
That is basically what it is. So Command would be like if you were to shout somebody down to get them to leave you alone. And sway would be like, if you were to be like, hey man, what about going over to talk to that person? Being more nice about it.
Yeah.
There's intentionally a lot of overlap, so there can be like conversation back and forth about these things. For sure.
I'm thinking the two activities I'm good at. I do think, like, again, the way we put up this character, I think they're not the one that issues the commands. They're the sort of the power behind whatever throne or whatever seat there is. So I think there'll be 2 in sway, and I think attune feels like just sensing. It's sensing vibes, right? So I think maybe that as well, sensing the thing in the room. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, attune is.
Oh, you've got it there, yeah.
The way that I have this written down is attune to religious, natural, or other arcane forces, sensing or manipulating them.
Yeah, I think. Actually, I don't know. I tell you what, 2 to sway. And then I think 1 then to study a person, object, text, or situation to gather information or apply knowledge. I think that's the thing. I think this character watches a lot and sort of gains that information and then acts. And when they do act, it's very subtle, but it's very quick. And when they strike, you're like, oh, who did that? And you're like, it was me. Put it in the shadows. Ha. So 2 to sway and 1 to study.
So that's for the what you're good at.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's think about just sort of your lived experiences, and let's give a couple of stuff to that.
I think lived experience is... I think that maybe, again, I've said this person is like the youngest of maybe 7 children, or second youngest of 7 children. I think they often get forgotten about being the second youngest, because there's always this thing about like the youngest is the favorite. Everyone else is, like the firstborn is the rule breaker, etc. I think I'm just being very good, second youngest, everything says. So I think I get I'm sort of unobserved quite a bit. I just happen to be in certain situations making notes, and then they'll turn around and be like, oh, for goodness sake. You're like, you heard everything, didn't you? And you're like,
oh, that's very
like
good.
writing down the notes. So I would suggest a 1 in sneak then.
Gotcha. For anybody listening, 1 in the way that the stats work out for this game is that if you have a 1 in something, you have a 50-50 shot of getting it. You have there's ways to increase those odds, but that basically means that 1 is very good. You're already doing pretty good if you've got a 1 in something. But yeah. And what is another thing from your lived experience that you might want to add to? Remember, you could add more to an existing thing. So like you could bump study up to 2, you could bump sway up to 3.
I think I don't want to necessarily overdo sway. I think study up to 2 would be actually quite good. Again, that's sort of watching and listening again from sort of childhood into adolescence, always reading and watching people, always watching, which is always creepy when a small child does that. And then a couple of years later, you go to this sort of balding big character who's just always there looming over people. So I think 1 into that study, so making it up to 2.
Gotcha. And the final thing is thinking about like your culture, where you are coming from, your family, that sort of thing. If you could add 1 for that.
Okay, hear me out.
Yes.
I wonder if this family, there's always this thing with like fantasy realms and like families and long lineages and stuff. I wonder if the family initially wasn't necessarily politicians or governance or anything like that, but they were actually like monster hunters or something like that, like sort of a Van Helsing style of like tracking down things, or not even monster hunters, but do it like maybe a little bit of assassination, maybe not, just people for hire, mercenaries perhaps. But as a result, maybe then some of the other siblings are fully in that line of business, whilst the others are sort of like, again, finding information and something like that. So what I'm going to suggest is having a 1 in hunt, that even though I'm not like, I'm not necessarily a hunter myself, but I think those old family ways are all sort of like in the blood sort of thing, so that I'll notice if we're in a group of people, which I appreciate goes into study a little bit, but like suddenly I'm like, the most important person in the room is this person because they've done X, Y, Z, the way they hold themselves, and just that, that killer instinct where you're like a predator, game recognizes game. That's what I'm sort of thinking. And therefore I can always be aware of where my target is, whether they are someone I'm trying to seek out, but more importantly, if they're trying to seek me out. So that's sort of like, because I can imagine myself being a bit of a target for people if I'm being a bit slimy and trying to manipulate people. So I think that's what I say, gaining from sort of this family of like hunters / monster, like mercenaries for hire, but there's very discreet versions of them.
Yeah, that is so great. I think this is partially a symptom of a benefit, an aspect of having run this in this world for so long. You keep throwing out things that keep making me go, oh, there's another story path that I could take this down.
Ooh,
there's another thing that I can do, another NPC that I can like tie this to.
Perfect.
You mentioning that like you're part of a family made me think of a few different people, and you saying like Monster Hunter family made me think of people I hadn't considered. It's great.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited.
Good. Oh, great.
So I think that covers the special abilities. So we've got 1 in Hunt, 2 in Study, 1 in Sneak, and 2 in Sway. I'll also point out that Hunt was the last thing I would have thought of. So I love that that's what you chose.
Yeah. I have to be like, I need to be different. So what can it be?
Perfect. Okay, let me pull up the next step. Oh, record your character's name. Feel free to include a title or a nickname if you've got that in mind. But I think you already shared. Well, you said Simeon was what you had previously
Simeon was the name from the previous thing.
You can think about it. You don't have to decide right now.
Let me think on it a little bit, because I, as you know, I am so bad at coming up with names that I will just look around the room and I'll be like, the One Ring starter set. That's you know, I need to. Yes, I'll have a proper think and give you a good sounding fantasy name for sure.
One Ring.
One Ring. Ring.
You also mentioned potential character ideas, looks, vibes. It says record your character's looks / vibes. You don't have to do that right now either, but it sounds like you already have kind of a vague sense.
Yeah, I think this person, I think I'm going to use he, him pronouns for it, for him. And what I'm thinking is basically like a much bigger version of like a Nosferatu type individual, like so bold, very ominous, but it's just always like slightly quiet. And is I'm really thinking of the Game of Thrones, the spider in that, so slightly bigger individual, balding, so a bit broader in the shoulders and stuff like that. And just always patiently looking. But if it's that sort of thing where you spot them across the room, you're like double take. It's like, who is this person? And then when they speak, you're like, oh, they're again. First impressions may be deceiving, all that stuff, but I just like this idea of like, sort of maybe a little bit of a buck tooth perhaps or anything like that. So maybe you underestimate him in some way. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. Okay. The final bit of this is choosing a ally and a rival. So the idea here is that you are choosing a NPC, you're creating a couple of NPCs that you can potentially call on, or I can call on while we're playing to influence what happens. So how we're going to do this, I would like you to come up with a role in society that they play, and then give them a tag. A tag is basically something that describes like what they can do, what they are, that sort of thing. And if you want, you can also give them a name and a description. If you leave that blank, then I will fill that in. I might even like ask if, hey, you said this one character, you came up with a name for him. Could I actually erase that name and fill in an NPC that I already have?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah, and I'd love that as well. So, like I said, I'm not the best at coming up with names, and also I always think like character creation, it should be a more collaborative stuff as well.
Yes.
There's no more, like I said, there's no point me bringing the novella to you and going read that. If you can think of a character that can go in nicely for it.
Yes,
sure. So yeah.
So an example, I have like a big list of example roles that you could choose, and they're things like apprentice, mentor, artisan, supplier, local enforcer, runaway, escaped prisoner, cryptic, healer, hunter, poacher, so on and so forth. Then for the tags, to give you a sense of what I mean by that, we've got things like quick to fight, confused, discontented, charming, arcane, light. So like specifically saying this is a person that has like magical abilities related to light. Exceptionally heavy, concealed pockets. I guess I was just looking at objects. The suggested tags were objects.
Concealed.
Yeah. But yeah, they could have concealed pockets.
Yeah,
You could have a character that has a bunch of concealed pockets. But yeah, that gives you a sense of what I mean by that.
Okay.
So thinking about the character you have made so far, and thinking about the backstory questions you answered, who would be somebody that would be an ally to them? Not necessarily, maybe a friend, maybe not, but an ally to them that is in their life now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, instantly the thing I see in my head is that you always, whilst you may be an advisor, you always need an assistant of some sort. So what I'm imagining is maybe a very put upon individual who actually has to go and do most of the dirty work, perhaps, and maybe this character that I'm envisioning for myself is somebody who's like, oh, I don't have time to stay at this tavern and play cards. You will play in my place and let me know. Good, that sort of thing. That's so an individual like that who is, again, maybe has been assigned to me, like all the people, again, if we're thinking local governance or something like that, I always have some sort of individual who does actual admin work, but also maybe goes and does my shopping, goes and does, cleans my shoes, all that sort of thing. A dog's body of some sort.
Very good. Do you have an idea of what sort of tag you would like to apply to that? If you aren't sure yet, that's totally fine. If that seems like still too nebulous of a mechanic in your mind, I totally get that too.
No, I just because you say it, I see the word animated there for skeleton, but I like the idea that actually, I find them an ally, but I do find them deeply irritating because they are super keen. So rather than them, like I said, I put a lot on them, but they never get the hint of leave me alone a little bit. But I appreciate we're working towards the same goal. So I'm thinking of an energetic,
too energetic.
They're so good at their job and they're peppy about it. It's like, is it Jack from 30 Rock? There's sort of the intern. It's that level of everything's great, even if it's not, and I'm just there going, are you okay?
Oh, that's interesting. We had a character recently that was similar to that. But I am excited to try to take that same sort of basic role and differentiate it and heighten it, dial it up to a point where, I don't know. I'm excited to mess with that.
Because rather than because that's the thing, because I can understand my character being a bit sort of scheming and maybe negative as well, which again I have no problem playing. But there's no point in having another person, which I'm sort of I'm trying to punch up a little bit on stuff, and I punch down to get there. But there's no point in me punching down and that person taking it. I feel that's not the story we want to tell here, and also it's not fun for you as well if I just make you a punching bag. So if you're super peppy and bring stuff back, I'm going it's not working. Why are they live, laugh, love? That sort of. So and it just becomes something fun for you that it's it's not all doom and gloom in this person's life. It feels very much again, that sort of relationship The Witcher has with the bard, Jessica. So it's come on, it's fine. You go, oh, fine. But on a political level, is that, so again, I'm pulling from all these things just because I really want you to have fun with this character as well, rather than me going, do my shoes. And you're oh, okay. That's no fun for anyone.
I really like the comparison to The Witcher because while he is kind of an assistant, right? He also is not just under him. He doesn't have to follow everything that he's doing.
Absolutely.
There's not a huge gulf of hierarchy, right?
Yes, yeah.
It's more close.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I really like that idea.
So rival, who is somebody that this could be a person that you hate. This could be a person that wants you dead. This could be a person that just kind of annoys you and is gunning for your job, but is otherwise fine. It could be one of your siblings. It could be whoever.
Yeah, I definitely was thinking one of the other siblings, and I wonder if it is the actual youngest sibling who is perfect and beyond perfect. That's the only person that could really scupper any plans is the youngest of them all. And I in my head, I would love them to be femme presenting, maybe using she, her pronouns, and just have the very much in my head, I'm seeing like fairy tale style of like, they look beautiful no matter what state they're in. Everyone sort of goes, oh, she's so beautiful, that sort of thing. And when she speaks, she's poetic and educated, all that sort of thing. And I'm just there. Again, not saying anything about beauty standards here at all, but I'm just like, why does nobody else see me? And it's because I've been so manipulative and cruel, and she's just being herself. She's not even she's unaware of the power she holds just by being herself. And I crave that for myself. But I know if I reveal who I am,
I love this.
No power. I have nothing. So that's what I have in my head. It's the youngest out of our line, and maybe we're similar in age, maybe we're only apart by a year or two, and she's, again, I don't want to wish to ascribe too much to her, but I think she's not either a hunter or someone in the local government. I think she's just being herself, living her life. What I'm picturing is like Belle from Beauty and the Beast, that sort of like, she goes, reads books, everyone's like, oh, she's such a strange girl, but we love her, and I'm just like, but she's strange, she reads books, I read books, why I don't get the same thing.
That is very good. Okay, I like that a lot. All right. And I think that pretty much covers all of the character creation. I'm going to need to mull over like quest ideas.
Have a think. Of course. Yeah.
And I think like as we're going on, as the weeks go on, because we're not going to be recording the quest for probably at least another month and a half, 2 months, something like that. January, I think, is when we had talked about it. It is currently November, early November. So I'll think about possible quest ideas. I'll toss some stuff in your direction. My goal will be to present you with a concrete thing that you were supposed to do. Like, I'm not going to tell you everything that's going to happen.
No, of course not.
But you will know what your character is trying to accomplish at the beginning of the episode.
For sure.
Just because that helps with pacing these things. Beyond that, do you have any questions for me before we wrap this up?
No questions. I think the only thing I was going to say to you is obviously we've created a lot of NPCs around this, and I'm very happy for you as the game master to bring as many or as few of them in as you want, but please use them to torture my character in the sense of emotional things. I know sometimes people go, oh, plot armor and all that sort of thing, and I know, like, again, you would never do anything truly harmful to, say, like, animals or small children. Like, I've deliberately in my head all these folks that we've created there, adults, they've got their own vices and stuff like that, but please feel free to use them against my character and make the the gray choices.
Yes.
I feel that's this character, what we've created and what I've talked about in my head, they are a scoundrel, as we've said.
Yeah.
And I love morally great choices and having that decision. So it's what I've talked about it. I've talked about it to you before, this idea of foundries. So I think for this, from what we've created, I would really love some morally great choices, and I'm very happy for you to use all my NPCs against me. The family cast me out, all that sort of thing. So I just want to give you permission to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that is great. And I also want to tell you, I want you to have as much freedom to have an impact on this world that I've created as possible. And I don't want you to worry about overstepping or potentially stepping on canon or anything like that. That is my job to maintain. So if there's ever, like, if anything happens that, like, quote unquote contradicts canon, my first question will be, but does it really? My second question will be, okay, how can I sort of tweak the perspective to make it actually fit? And then third, then I would just let you know, hey, actually, we're going to need to, like, do something else.
For sure. It's like an improv. It's like I bring a brick, you bring a brick, we create the cathedral together on stage. There's no point in if you bring a brick and I bring the whole cathedral.
Yes, totally.
It's like, what? Yeah, no, I'm 100%. I'm really excited for this. Like I said, I know we've got many weeks away. We've got obviously time recording. Like you said, we're in November. December's just that black hole that everyone knows what it is.
Yeah.
But it's something I'm looking forward to for me for in the new year. So yeah, no, thank you for taking the time to go through this. I'm really, really excited.
I am also super, super excited to do this. I think Derek from How Not to DM, when I had asked, I'd put out a call at some point, hey, who should I have? Who would be your dream guest on SCQ? He mentioned you and the person that I had for episode 101 to 108.
Well, there you go.
Hey Derek, good job. And
Good job,
hey
Derek.
everybody else.
Yeah.
Let me know who you want to be on this show. I will check in with people.
Oh, amazing.
But yeah, thank you again, and see you in a few months. Until then, let's pitter patter on out of here.
Yeah. Bye.
All right, nice.
Thank you to the Joy Drops for the use of Not Drunk as our intro and outro music. Thanks to all of our guests, and thanks to you for listening. You can find us and say hi over at sidecharacterquest.com or by checking out our show notes for more links and information. If you're enjoying the show, drop a rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll see you around. Bye!
Oh, hey! Do you want to find out more about tabletop role-playing games, but not too sure where to start? Do you want to play a lot of different systems, but don't have time to try them all? Do you just wish someone would summarize what the main game mechanics are so you can follow along more easily? Well, you're in luck. Check out What Am I Rolling? A twice-monthly RPG one-shot podcast, hosted by me, Fiona. I like exploring different RPG systems, rule sets, and the stories they create. I also like talking to game designers about how to run their games. So, come check it out. We would love to have you. The What Am I Rolling podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the One Shot Podcast Network.
There'll be like a little music playing and then bloopers.
And of course, I'm doing the thing that I just said for you not to do, of
Yeah,
like, poking around on the different...
It's all good, don't worry. Like I said, I'm happy just
screens.
to test these things out and all that sort of thing. I always think it's useful for everyone to be able to do that sort of thing and not worry about having all that, because that's the thing is, if you don't do it, it'll absolutely go to heck, so that's why I'm like, right now, just testing it out. If it doesn't come out, it doesn't come out,
My mouth is like sticky and gross right now. I hate it. Hopefully I'll be able to clean up a lot of these pops and stuff.
That's on you.
Yeah. One moment, my cat's doing something dangerous.
Go.
Coming. Sorry, he chose this moment to climb into the Christmas tree.
Oh no. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I know that feeling.
But anyway, continue. Sorry.
No, sure.
Hello, my name is Sam Dunawald, and I'm here to tell you about Dice Exploder, a podcast where each week me and a rotating co-host take one tabletop RPG mechanic, just one mechanic, and break it down as deep as we possibly can. If you love thinking about role-playing games and how they work, this is the show for you. Come listen to me talk with Pam Punsalon about how you can use Devil's Bargains from Blades in the Dark in any game you run, Mikey Ham on the simple joys of exploding dice, or my very own dad on what's kept D&D over the past 30 years. It's an interview show, a review show, a design show, and most of all, a show for anyone who loves these games. Come on down and join us. Find Dice Exploder at diceexploder.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm going to stop recording.